How would you like to live on Mars? I mean, we have heard of spacecrafts going to Mars, but I'm talking about actually living there. How crazy would that be? Well, keep watching this video and you might find out how exactly that could happen. In today's video, we are going to be talking about Elon Musk's plan for humans to start living on Mars. According to Musk, plans are underway to establish a human settlement on Mars. It would start simply by shuttling thousands of people from Earth to Mars, and then in about 100 years to come, millions of people should be living on Mars. Musk is not the first person to dream of this, but there are high hopes that this dream would actually become a reality soon, because he's the only one with the money, resources, and determination to actualize this. There are a lot of questions on everybody's mind as to how this would work. Let's start by talking about how we would get there. This is the simplest part, actually, because Elon Musk is building a starship, SpaceX, and this would be used to transport humans from Earth to Mars, and vice versa. If you haven't seen the video on SpaceX Starbase, then click this link that's appearing on the top right corner of your screen to get updated. The SpaceX Starship would be used to carry people and cargo supplies to and from Mars. Currently, the spaceship is built in such a way that it can carry 100 metric tons of cargo on each flight. Now, this is a lot. If we are able to compare it to cars, then that would be about 50 Tesla Model 3 cars. The rocket should be at least 200 feet tall when fully assembled. So, how this would work is that first, the spacecraft would be loaded with the astronauts, which would then launch on top of a 39-foot wide booster that produces a massive 28 million pounds of thrust. Using 42 Raptor engines, the booster will accelerate to 5,374 miles in an hour. From this calculation, you should know that to achieve this, then this isn't just any rocket. Overall, this rocket is 3.5 times more powerful than NASA's Saturn V, which originally is the biggest rocket built to date. I'm sure you already know this, but I'm going to chip you in anyways. The Saturn V is the rocket that carried the Apollo missions to the moon. The SpaceX rocket would launch from 39A at Kennedy Space Center at Cape Canaveral, Florida, and deliver the crew capsule to orbit around Earth. Then the booster would steer itself towards the soft landing spot back at the launch pad. This feat is what SpaceX rocket boosters have been doing for almost a year now. After this, the booster would pick up a fuel tanker and carry that into orbit. It's in this orbit that the spaceship would be fueled for its journeys to Mars. The plan is that once every 2 years, when Earth and Mars reach their closest point in space, the fleets of spaceships will make the 7-month journey between the two planets. The first crossing will be a few ships, but after a few of these cycles, thousands of ships will be sent from Earth to Mars. Based on Musk's calculations, the rocket booster should be able to be used about 1,000 times, each tanker 100 times, and each spaceship 12 times. During this time, maybe 100 humans would hitch a ride on each ship. With time, this number could increase from 100 to more than 200, but in 40 to 100 years, the million people should be on Mars. This is after the first ship launches though. Now that we know how exactly we can get to Mars, let's talk about how we plan on colonizing Mars, and how exactly it's going to be like living on Mars. The first thing you should know is that Mars is a very cold place to live in. The average temperature on Mars is around -60 degrees Celsius, which is super cold, and I'm talking way past Canadian kind of cold. Yes, during summer, the equator of Mars comes down to a temperature of around 20 degrees Celsius, but this is still pretty cold. So, if you know you're not a fan of the cold, you should probably cross Mars off of your bucket list. I should also add that this atmosphere on Mars is mostly carbon dioxide, and the volume of the atmospheric gas is less than 1% of what we are used to here on Earth, so there is nothing there to breathe. There is also nothing there that can protect the surface of Mars from cosmic radiation. How is living there now going to be possible, you might ask? Well, all this is still in the works, but let's continue. The first journey to Mars would mainly be to deliver supplies and establish a propellant depot on the Martian surface. After this depot is set and the cargo has been delivered to the surface, the work begins. The first human settlers on Mars would have to dig beneath the surface and dredge up buried ice. The purpose of this will be to supply precious water and make a cryo methane propellant that will help in powering Mars. Living on Mars won't be child's play though. I don't want to scare you, but living on Mars could result in deaths. Even Elon Musk had this to say. Are you prepared to die? If that's okay, then you're a candidate for going. So from this, you should be able to tell that Mars is probably not a very safe place to live. Any small incident that happens could end up costing a person his or her life. There are lots of challenges to overcome while living on Mars. One very important one is dust. There are epic dust storms that cover the entire planet sometimes, which could end up affecting the equipment. A lot of measures would have to be carried out to prevent this from happening. The equipment would have to be thoroughly sealed to prevent dust from getting in and ruining everything. All hope is not lost though, and as much as we know that Mars is not a very safe place to live in, theories are being formed on how Mars can be transformed as I speak to you. One of them is that Mars should be nuked. I don't know if you can remember, but in August 2019, Musk tweeted that Mars should be nuked. He believes that the science behind it is that if you detonate a bunch of nuclear bombs over the top of the polar regions of Mars, the heat produced can melt the frozen water and release a huge amount of stored carbon dioxide and water vapor into the Martian atmosphere. Following this theory, the released gas should be able to increase the density of the atmosphere and warm the planet. However, let's not start jumping up yet. This is just an idea proposed by Musk, and so nothing is certain yet. A study released in the Journal for Nature Astronomy in the year 2018 concluded that there is not enough carbon dioxide stored on Mars, so making this idea work would be a close to impossible mission. It could end up backfiring and causing a nuclear winter event to happen. By this, I mean if the planet was to be nuked, the explosion could kick off the Martian dust so much that it could cover the entire planet and block out the sun for years. Now imagine surviving without the sun. Would that even be possible? If we rule out this idea proposed by Musk, how then can it be conducive to live on Mars? Do we live in domes or underground? Or is it a Martian building constructed in 3D printed eggs made from dirt? Speaking of this, a company called AI Space Factory came up with an automated process that would make it possible to 3D print an egg-shaped building using materials harvested on Mars. It's a long process, but the idea behind it is that it would be possible to build a super strong, stable, and insulating shell optimized to handle internal atmospheric pressure and thermal stresses. There's also the theory of making use of solar power, which seems like the best idea so far. Anyways, all these would be decided in due process though, and we are eager to see how everything turns out. Musk wants to start landing unscrewed starships on Mars by 2024, and these starships would be loaded with supplies that would be used to start building a Mars base, so everything seems to be underway. We are hopeful by the 2040s, mass migration should begin from Earth to Mars. We have come to the end of this video. I need to know what you think about Elon Musk's ideas of human living on Mars. Do you think it is far-stretched, or are you in support? Let me know in the comment section below. Also, like this video if you are in support of humans living on Mars, and you would like to live there. See you in the next video.